Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to the channel to another video. So, I just finished watching Dark Season 3 and it was just amazing. It was just batshit crazy. It was incredible. And it was literally the most perfect ending anyone could want from a series. It's everything I ever wanted it to be and more. It surprised me beyond anything I could ever imagine. And it was just incredible. And it's just really good to see a series have a really satisfying ending, because there's a lot of series out there, especially, Game of Thrones, that started out really, really well, but by the end, the writers and creators just drove the series into this massive steaming pile of shit, and it just became irredeemably bad, and everyone hated it for it, but Dark didn't do it. They actually managed to finish the entire thing very well because it was well planned, and it shows that they had planned all the 3 seasons way before they even started filming or production. I think they created the entire story for all the 3 seasons, and they just went to Netflix for the first season and was like, let us make this series. If the first season does well, we'll continue, and it did, and it's awesome, and it lived up to all the hype around it. So yeah, and in this video, I'm just gonna be generally talking about the season 3 as a whole, and explaining the ending as good as I can, and explain the very messed up family tree in this story because it's messed up. Okay, so in season 3 we got answers to all of our unanswered questions that I had in my previous video, and my theory about a world without Wyndon, it kind of came true. It really didn't end with a world without Wyndon. Wyndon still existed, but I think the inhabitants, they changed, and all of the inhabitants that were a result of time travel weren't there. So starting with the ending scene of season 3, we get to see that both the, fractured worlds get erased, all of that gets erased, and we are left with the origin world where Voller marries Hannah, and, Peter ends up with Benny because Charlotte doesn't exist in this dimension, and Regina and Katharina are both single, as Ulrich is also a product of time travel and stuff like that. And Regina is most probably married to Alexander, but we're not sure about that. Maybe he didn't come to Wyndon in this reality. So that's it. We get a happy ending, and with Hannah pregnant with a child, she thinks of naming the child Jonas, which was, I think, a very nice way to end the series. And coming to the entire thing is that there are now 3 worlds, as it's explained, and the triquetra that Sigmundus used wasn't really to signify the 3 timelines. It was meant to signify the 3 worlds. So there's an origin world where time travel didn't exist until Hege Thanahaus lost his son and daughter-in-law and his granddaughter to a car accident, and he tried to alter the course of time by creating a time machine. And he eventually failed in doing that and fractured his own world into 2 different realities. A reality where Jonas exists and a reality where Jonas does not. So in the first reality, of course, we followed that reality through season 1 and 2 and saw that how time travel, connects the entire thing. We learned about most of the origins of the inhabitants of Wyndon and how it's, very, very fucked up. And then there was a world where things were a little less effed up, but they were still really, really messed up because of time travel, where Jonas didn't exist. So in the first reality, we followed Jonas, a young guy who just discovers time travel and goes through, his history to, actually end the cycle. So, and in the alternate world, Mikkel doesn't travel back in 2019, and he just stays there, so Jonas doesn't exist there. So, yeah, and overall, we get all the missing pieces of the puzzle. So coming to the family tree, we have a very complicated family tree that I just cannot fathom. The only question Dark Season 3 couldn't answer was the father of Regina Tiedemann, and I think they left it a mystery on purpose. But the biggest unanswered question is, how did Voller hurt his eye? I mean, that shit is killing me, right? Because holy shit, in the real world he's missing an eye, and in the alternate world he's missing an arm. The guy can't catch a break. He just keeps losing body parts, and it sucks. And we don't even get to know that mystery. I think the writers did that, as a joke to all the very complicated mysteries they solved at the end, but they just didn't answer Voller's missing eye. I think that was a very fun part of the writers to do. So I have my trusty notebook with me again, and we're gonna dive deep into this very messed up family tree. We start in 1953 when Claudia is already 11 years old. So Doris Tiedemann and Egon Tiedemann give birth to Claudia Tiedemann, who later gives birth to Regina. Now, it was heavily implied throughout both season 1 and 2, and even in the third season, that Egon is the father of Regina. But by the end of season 3, we get to know that Egon is not really the father of Regina, and Claudia doesn't disclose who it actually is. So it's one of the unanswered questions, like one of the 2 unanswered questions left. Now, Regina meets Boris Niewald in 1986. This is in the world that we started in season 1, and they give birth to Bartosz Tiedemann. Now, back in 1953, after Hannah gets the briefcase from the stranger back in season 2, she travels to 1953 and starts a relationship with Egon Tiedemann. Now, they give birth to Celia Tiedemann, who is subsequently... What is subsequent? What was that word? Who is subsequently sent ahead in time in 2052, where she meets, Adam and Hosek Hall of Sigmundus, and he ends up stealing a suit and travels back to 1888 with the God Particle to meet Bartosz back. So Bartosz and Celia give birth to 2 children, Hanno Tauber, who is Noah, and Agnes Nielsen, who is later turns out to be Tronte Nielsen's mother. Now, Hanno Tauber meets, he grows up in 1888 through to 1921, and where he meets an older version of himself that guides him into time traveling, and he goes to the future to 2052 and meets a young Elizabeth Doppler. Now, coming to the origin of Elizabeth Doppler, back in 1953, we see Greta and Bernd Doppler give birth to Helge Doppler, who before 1986, somewhere between 1973 and 1974, meets Ulla Schmidt, who we don't see but is confirmed to be the mother of Peter Doppler by the family tree in Eve's lair. Now, Peter comes back to Winden in 1986 and meets Charlotte, and in this reality she doesn't know who her parents is because they are obviously Elizabeth and Hanno. So Elizabeth and Hanno give birth to Charlotte meets Peter, and they in turn give birth to Franziska and Elizabeth. Elizabeth in turn goes to the remains in the future in 2020 and meets Hanno and later gives birth to Charlotte herself. So it's a closed loop right there. And with Franziska, we don't go far. In our original world, she continues working for Sigmundus and Adam, and in the old world, she dies along with Magnus Nielsen in the apocalypse. Now we have Agnes actually gives birth to Tronte, and who's Tronte's father. We'll get into that a bit later. So Tronte meets Jana Nielsen in 1953, and they later get married and give birth to Mads Nielsen and Ulrich Nielsen. Mads, of course, goes missing in 1986 and later dies, and his body is found later in 2019, sent to the future by Helge himself. Now, of course, Ulrich Nielsen continues to exist and lives his life throughout Winden and meets and marries Katharina. Now, coming to the origin of Katharina, she was born of Helene and Herman. I forgot their last name. Shit, there are so many names to remember. So Helene and Herman give birth to Katharina, and Herman obviously has an early demise, and Katharina's mother actually works in the psychiatric facility where Ulrich was later sent to after he goes back to 1953 to kill Helge, but ultimately fails. Now, Katharina marries Ulrich and later gives birth to Martha, Magnus, and Mikkel. Martha, of course, dies in our reality. Magnus stays alive and later goes to work for Sigmundus, and Mikkel is sent back in time to 1986 to later meet Hannah. He marries Hannah, gives birth to Jonas, and he is our protagonist throughout season 1 and 2. And Jonas, at the day of the apocalypse when Martha dies, Adam comes back in time and kills her to set Jonas on a path to become himself. So this eventually causes 2 realities to happen. One where alternate Martha comes back to save Jonas and takes him to the alternate world to continue the cycle that Eve has planned. And in the other, Martha doesn't come to save Jonas. Martha is instead taken by Bartosz to another place, to Eve's lair to become herself, her older self. Jonas lives on through 2020 to 2052 and becomes the stranger and works with Hanno and Elizabeth and Claudia at the same time. And later he travels back as a stranger self to 1888 with Bartosz, Magnus, and Franziska, and he works there to create Sigmundus as it is. Now, what's very messed up about this family tree is that Jonas's father is Mikkel, who is the son of Ulrich. Now, Ulrich is the son of Tronte, who is, in turn, the son of Jonas's son. He is the unnamed character, the new character that we see, that he travels in a group with his young self, his middle-aged self, and his old self. He's an unnamed character. He was never given a name. He is the son of Martha and Jonas, and he is the missing key, the missing element that binds this entire cycle together, that causes it to repeat itself infinitely, is him. And he is the father of Stronte, and he is the guy that got the building permit for the nuclear power plant for burnt Doppler, which in turn created the God particle and started the apocalypse. He also went back in time and killed a bunch of people so that every event takes place as it does. So, Jonas's son is his own great-grandfather, and his great-grandmother is the daughter of his best friend, born from his half-sister, which is a new level of incest and messed up. Now, in the alternate world, of course, I'm gonna go into that and explain that a bit. In the alternate world, everything basically happens the same way, just Jonas doesn't exist because Mikkel doesn't go back in time in 2019. So in that reality, Martha is dating, what was his name? The kid? Eric's brother, Eric Ovendorf's brother. I forgot his name, of course. Oh my god, so many names to remember. So Martha is dating him, and Jonas doesn't exist. In that world, Ulrich lives Katharina and her 3 children end up living in the Kahnwald household, where Ines doesn't get Mikkel, and Ines dies early. And in that reality, Ulrich, of course, leaves Katharina and marries Hannah. And Hannah gets pregnant with this child, but we never see who that child is as she dies in the apocalypse. And in that reality, Ulrich also cheats on Hannah. So he cheats on the woman he cheated on his wife with, which is very sad. Now, in that reality, Ulrich is cheating on Hannah with Charlotte. And in this reality, Peter is actually the pastor of the Winden Church, which is really cool. And in this reality also, Elizabeth can talk, but Franziska is the mutant deaf person, so which is I think a really cool thing. And in season 3 episode 1 titled Deja Vu, we actually see very familiar visuals, very familiar sights to actually remind us, oh, we've seen this before, right? In the openings, what is indicated to us that everything is inverted in this reality, so the title crawl and the date card, all the letters come out inverted, which is really cool. And we have this opening shot of, Franziska and Magnus making love, just echoing the scene in season 1 where, Ulrich was making love with Hannah in the same bed, in the same room, and she climbs down the exact way wearing a hoodie, just like Ulrich did, but instead that was on the right side of the screen. Now the house is visually inverted, so it's on the left side of the screen, which was really cool. We mirrored the shots of Martha waking up in a sweat, just like Jonas coming down the stairs and opening the fridge. But in this reality, the layout of the kitchen is also inverted, so the fridge is on the left side and the table is on the right. It was a really cool thing. And Magnus has black hair, of course. And in this reality, the time travel thing happens, but instead of Peter and Tronte finding the body of Mads, Bartosz, Franziska, Magnus, and Martha find the body of Mads, and it sends, Ulrich in the goose chase. Helge actually comes to the police station and confesses to the murder of Mads Nielsen. Ulrich lets him go. He later follows him through the cave back in time to an alternate 1986, where he almost kills Helge, and in this reality, Helge doesn't get his scarring as a child. He gets as an adult and he loses his right eye, left eye, I think, yeah, left eye, which is more brutal. And older Helge actually kills Ulrich with a crowbar, which is, I guess he deserved it. He's a cheating guy. He's a cheating slut. I guess he deserved it. But one of the saddest things in this series was entirely Katharina and Ulrich. Katharina ended up going back in time, trying to save Ulrich, but ends up getting killed by her own mother, which was really, really sad. And Ulrich gets displaced in time. He ends up spending 34 years in a psychiatric facility before Katharina shows up and promises to rescue him, but fails as she dies in her mother's hands, and she becomes the drowned lady in the lake that Bartosz told us about back in season 2. And we see the necklace Martha gave to Jonas. They found it lying in the shore of the lake, I think, which was really cool. That was originally given to Hannah by Egon, right? And she went and tried to abort her and Egon's baby, but instead didn't end up doing it, and she actually left that necklace for Helene, and she picked it up and kept it with her. And in the fight, in the struggle, she loses it and it falls in the shore of the lake, and they later find it. I think it was really cool loop there, and every thread was tied back at the end. And how they actually stop this entire loop from happening is that Claudia kills her alternate self and takes the place of both Claudias in both worlds. So she simultaneously works for both Adam and Eve and herself. She works with Jonas and people from the alternate reality to ultimately find the origin. It was believed by both Adam and Eve that their child was the origin of the whole thing, the whole mess. And Eve tries to, Eve continues the loop where he gets to live on and continue the loop in her timeline, and Adam in our timeline tries to destroy him along with Martha so that this loop isn't created. Now he succeeds in it, but he finally sees that he still exists, and he realizes that his child isn't the origin. Now Claudia actually figures out that Hage Tannhaus is actually the origin of everything, and that Adam was wrong, which was, I think, a really cool way of showing the misconception of everyone. And Adam and Eve both knew about 2 worlds. They didn't know about 3. It was only Claudia who later figures out everything, and she leads Adam into solving this whole mess. He sends Adam back to the moment in time, in the alternate timeline where Martha doesn't come to save Jonas. She sends Adam there, and Adam later explains to Jonas the entire thing about the 3 worlds and how H.G. Tannhaus is the origin of the entire thing. Now he sends that Jonas in turn to go get Martha before Magnus and Franziska get her, and he gets her, comes to the origin world, and they actually get to convince Tannhaus' son to not leave, as Tannhaus was motivated by the death of his son to create the entire thing. He sends Tannhaus' son back. Tannhaus' son doesn't die, he doesn't create the device, and in turn, the split realities aren't created, and everything stays contained in the original world. And at the end, they hold each other in 2 times, young Martha and Jonas and Adam and Eve, as they evaporate, and all of their counterparts, all of the people that were created by this time travel loop, just, go away from existence. Now, a lot of people are pointing out that the timestamp that, in that real weird time portal where Martha and Jonas see each other as children. Martha sees Jonas in her closet as a child, and Jonas sees Martha in his basement as a child. Now everyone's saying that it's a loophole, but it isn't. It's just quantum entanglement, and those memories were created at that exact moment. Those memories were created because they went to the time stream and saw themselves. Martha and Jonas only remembered those memories after they go there because it was created by that. It's a very small loop that closes in on itself very quickly. And I think it was a beautiful way to show that, Jonas and Martha are actually perfect for each other. So all in all, I love Dark. It's incredible. It's a show with such meticulous writing. It's insane to see that this level of craft still goes into Netflix series because, most of them turn out to be shitty with shallow writing and stuff. bad acting, but this is something else entirely, and I loved it. So, you know, do share your thoughts in the comments below about this season. Let me know where I am wrong and where I missed stuff, because I missed a lot of stuff because there's so much going on, and obviously I can't explain everything in one video. It's just impossible. It would take like months of writing, which I just won't do because I'm lazy. But yeah, do let me know if you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe for more content, and hope you had an absolutely fantastic time.